What's up, people? YouTube, this is bringing you guys another video to the channel, and today we're going to be discussing the final part of my Black Ops Cold War review, my final review, the final verdict, however you want to look at it. Yesterday, I discussed the good side of Cold War, the positive things that came with that game, and today, I'm going to be talking about the negatives. What things about Cold War were bad? What was the true detrimental downfall of the game as a whole? And a lot of the things that I have are fundamental issues or things that I felt like I could not control, that I don't even have a clear, concise idea of what actually caused it. So that's what we're going to jump into here. And the overwhelming amount of things that I have to talk about are multiplayer based. So that is where we're going to start. Just to kind of start off everything, if you guys have been watching my channel, you probably know I was hacked. My account was hacked and stolen from me back in March, I want to say, like mid to end of March. I lost my entire account that I'd had for years. I lost all my camos I had earned in Modern Warfare 2019. I lost everything that I had earned up to that point in Black Ops Cold War, which I almost had the Zombies Mastery camo, Dark Ether, I believe. I almost had that camo complete. Like, I'm talking, I was a handful of guns away from getting it. And I lost my account, which was very upsetting, and I fought with this for about a good month or so before I really came to terms with the fact that it's probably gone forever, and I'm gonna need to start over. And so I did just that, with very little communication from Activision, very little communication from any sort of support. I just went ahead, made a new account, started grinding, assuming that my old account was lost forever to somebody who was using it for hacks in Warzone, which is an entirely separate issue. So I grinded and grinded and grinded, and then I unlocked the Zombies Mastery camo on that account, and roughly about, I don't know, like a week later, I got my original account restored. And then, on top of that, when I had my original account restored, I had still had a lot of my camo progress undone. I'm assuming because they didn't know if it was legitimate or not, which it was. So instead of being like a handful of guns away, now I had about 2/3 of them done. So then I had like 10 guns that I had to do, 10, 12 guns that I had to work on, which was a bummer. So I essentially almost did the camo grind 3 times, so like 2.5 times. And just since I've completed it again on my main account, some of my guns have been reset with this last update. I still have the camos on the rest of my guns, Dark Ether on the rest of my weapons, but some of my sniper rifles got reset again. So I have to go in and I'm gonna have to grind those out again because I want them for Warzone. So that's very frustrating. Huge negative, and I don't know necessarily if I can blame Black Ops Cold War for all of that. More so Activision and that whole process, which hopefully gets better in the coming days, and hopefully not a lot of people have to experience this in the future. So getting the whole hacked thing out of the way, I had a lot of issues with matchmaking and connection. To this day, I have problems with that. Now, there are other YouTubers who have done tests that have been able to prove that they prioritize your skill rather than your connection, which is the first time that we have any recollection of this happening in a Call of Duty title. So I know that I'm being impacted by that. That is a thing that everybody's impacted by. But I also have my own personal internet issues, which I can't necessarily say is the game's fault. I have a hard time figuring out how much of that is the game and how much of that is my internet. So I'm throwing that out there, but I try not to hold that against it because I can't really tell the difference. And I'm assuming that Vanguard is going to have a very similar matchmaking situation, because that matchmaking situation is what is getting Activision the most money and player interaction time. So I doubt that's going to change. Now, another issue that I had with the game all the way up until about a month ago was weird issues with the FOV slider and hit detection. So one of the huge positives, in my opinion, with Cold War initially was the FOV slider. I instantly activated it, cranked that baby all the way up, and I was loving it on my PS5. But then when I went and played multiplayer, I was having so many problems staying on target. Like, I could not keep my shots on people. I was getting turned on, which I didn't know if that was a connection of a combination of connection and internet issues or whatever the case was. But part of it I knew was the fact that it just felt like I couldn't like stay on target. I couldn't track enemies like I've been able to do since I started playing Call of Duty like 12, 15 years ago, however long it's been. I felt like I could not keep track of enemy players. And I knew that I wasn't crazy. Like, I felt like I was going insane at some points. You know, I'd go back to Modern Warfare 2019 and I was working on camos on my other account when I had been hacked, and I was snapping on people. I was having no problem hitting my shots. And I'd go back to Cold War, and if I'd play any multiplayer, it was almost miserable because I couldn't stay on target, and I didn't know what it was. I eventually completely disabled the FOV slider, and that helped. I was able to keep my shots on target more, but ultimately, I was watching TikTok about a month ago, and I came across this guy's video, and he said that if you go into your settings and you disable something to do with the analog stick, I can't remember exactly what it is off the top of my head, but if you disable a setting in your analog stick, you turn it to 0, it completely fixes that issue, because he had also been experiencing that. And sure enough, it does. I no longer have problems snapping onto enemies. I no longer have problems, for the most part, staying on target when I play Cold War. And I was plagued with that issue for almost an entire Call of Duty season, and I tried everything in the book until I just randomly came across this guy's TikTok video. So definitely huge negatives in my book for that, because it was driving me insane the entire year. Now let's talk about the no flinch on sniper rifles. This, even now, considering they've added flinch, but not very much, is a problem. I've never been good with sniper rifles, ever. I've never been able to hit insane trick shots or use a sniper rifle to run around and consistently do good, but I can do that in Cold War. I can run around with a sniper rifle, I can hit more shots than I've ever been able to hit before, I can quick scope more effectively, because there's no flinch. I'm not punished for missing a shot with a sniper rifle. It's just, you're just not. As a matter of fact, I can get shot 2 or 3 times and still have time to ADS and kill somebody with a sniper rifle because my shot is not being thrown off. And that's a problem. You know, you can't have one shot, one kill weapons able to tank bullets from another player and them still get the kill. On top of the fact that there are people out there who are truly skilled with sniper rifles, that added with that level of assistance just is completely unfair. I can't tell you how many times I've completely left lobbies because of the insane amount of sniper rifle usage that I ran into, especially earlier on in the game's lifespan. It was very, very bad. Now, that's not to say that I think that having no flinch was a bad thing. I just don't think that there's a place for that with sniper rifles. I think that it has to be tuned a lot. As far as regular multiplayer, I don't really think that having flinch or having no flinch was a bad thing necessarily. I think that it was more good than bad, but sniper rifles, they're just, it's not needed. Now, the score streak system in Cold War was really, really bad, in my opinion. They weren't even really score streaks. They were more so power-ups. Pretty much, if you're a half-decent player, you are guaranteed to get all of your score streaks every single game, and you can have some of the most powerful score streaks selected, and you're almost guaranteed to get it every single game, and some of them twice sometimes. Because it's just a matter of getting kills. You don't even have to really string together kills. Like, it helps a lot, but you don't have to do it. And there's no real risk of losing your kill streak. And again, this just rewards bad players. You're just basically giving them specialist abilities in the form of score streaks. And it's really bad, and that is something that I feel like Treyarch really went away from the roots of Call of Duty by implementing, and I'm happy to see that that's not the case with Vanguard, and hopefully never again. Now, something that I think Modern Warfare 2019 did really, really well for the most part was Ground War. Ground War was a fresh take for Call of Duty to that extent, and it kind of like nudged its way into the Battlefield community, and Ground War was really fun, and I was really hoping that we were going to see the same kind of setup happen with Black Ops Cold War, and we really didn't. I mean, we had Fire Team, Dirty Bomb, and another mode that I can't even remember the name of it. That was okay. They were going for that, but it just wasn't enough. I really wanted to see 50v50 on Ground War style maps with very similar objective styles as Ground War for Modern Warfare 2019. And I think that would have been a really good way to package this game, and they just completely missed the mark on that. But I'm hoping that with Vanguard we get a mode like that, and I'm also hoping that moving forward we see that people really enjoyed that mode, because I think people really liked it. It also seemed less intrusive when it comes to the overall feel of skill-based matchmaking, so that also needs to be mentioned. Now, the content at the launch of Black Ops Cold War was pretty rough. Like, the traditional multiplayer experience was hurting. Regular zombies was hurting. We had one map for zombies. We had 8 6v6 maps. One of them was Nuketown, I believe, and it was just repetitive and stale, and none of the maps were overly good, I guess you could say. None of them really stood out. Now, I think coming to the end of the year, it's pretty good, but there should never be a time when a Call of Duty releases with that little of maps and content, because it just gets too repetitive too quick. And a lot of those maps had already been played because of the beta that people had experienced shortly before that. So the content at the launch of Cold War was pitiful, and thankfully Vanguard looks like it's going to have that fixed drastically, like the best it's been since Black Ops 3, I guess, something like that, maybe Infinite Warfare. So hopefully we never see map count be that low again at the launch of a title. Now, I had mentioned earlier in the video that I had a lot of issues with connection and staying on target with enemies, all that. So that all kind of goes into what I'm going to speak on next, which is the multiplayer camo grind. The multiplayer camo grind, I thought that the camos looked good. I had no real complaints about the way the camos looked in this game. My problem is they were almost impossible to get. Some of that being definitely related to my issues with matchmaking, connection, internet, FOV slider, hit detect. All that mess is probably a decent part of why I struggled with a lot of weapons. But the one I really want to speak on here is the issue with launchers. Early on in the game's life cycle, it was very easy to get the launchers done because Flak Jacket didn't protect you that much from explosions, which shouldn't be that way. I understand that. But there is a challenge that requires you to get double kills and then I think like 3 kill streaks with launchers, which is almost impossible in the current state of the game. It doesn't matter if you're playing hardcore. It doesn't matter if you're playing regular core, Nuketown 24/7. It just doesn't matter because Flak Jacket is used by almost everybody, and Flak Jacket is so good that it takes 2 rockets to kill 1 person, and if you have to get double kills, you're gonna die before you can do that 99% of the time. It was such an obnoxious challenge that just seemed so difficult just to be difficult rather than it actually being something you have to think about how to do. There was no strategy to trying to figure that out, in my opinion. It was just so blatantly hard and based on chance of you hopefully finding people that weren't using Flak Jacket that it was miserable. So I didn't even do it. That's the first time I've ever seen a camo grind and didn't try to do it at all based off of just how difficult it was. I've seen camo grinds in the past that I didn't do based off of time, like I just didn't have time to get it done, or I just wasn't as interested in it as I would have liked to have been. But I wanted to have these camos done. I did, and I just couldn't do it. I gave up on it because it was not worth the frustration for a challenge that literally was only hard for the sake of being hard and was not hard based off of the ability to come up with an alternate way to complete that challenge. And I will say, as frustrating as the Modern Warfare 2019 camo challenge was, it felt like there was always a game mode or a route that I could go to get that camo challenge done, and that was completely non-existent in the multiplayer aspect of Cold War. Now I'm just going to kind of talk about miscellaneous bugs, which again mostly are associated with the camo grind. I have had countless times where I've completed camos, closed the game, opened it back up the next day, whatever, and my camos have been removed and I have to re-unlock those camos, particularly in zombies where an update rolls out, boom, camo's gone. Game crashes the entire year. I had problems with the game crashing on a PS5 nonetheless. Constant game crashes. Just the other night I was playing Forsaken, my game crashed twice within an hour. My friend, I can't even play zombies with him because once he gets to a slightly higher round, game crashes. He is also on a PS5. So there were a lot of bugs and just things that seemed frustrating that were definitely worse at the beginning of the year, but they remained relevant throughout the entire year and were never truly fixed. And this is where I'm going to wrap this video up. I'm going to talk about a little bit of issues with zombies. So there was not enough round-based maps in my opinion. It obviously got better in the last half of the year, last quarter of the year, however you want to call it, with Mauerdertoten and then Forsaken. I do appreciate that, but I really would have appreciated them coming out with like a remastered map, like Why didn't we get Doris or something like that, just to kind of hold us over? One more round-based zombies map during the year, especially from like July through January and that time period, would have made a world of difference, in my opinion, for zombies. And I think that that should have been something that they prioritized. I understand they were also working on Vanguard zombies, so I give a little bit of a pass on that. But there should have been another round-based zombies map, and I personally think the Firebase Z was a bad map on top of that, so that made it extra dry for me throughout the year. Outbreak was a great addition. I mentioned that in the previous video, but a lot of the regions, or every region in Outbreak, to be honest, seems very dry. There should be more zombies spawning. There should be more objectives, more stuff to do in every Outbreak region, not just like 2 or 3 different things you can do and then you have to do the main objective and leave. There should be like 10 different things you can do that are, you know, goal oriented. There should be a way to just kind of play that map throughout the extent of the game of Outbreak if you really want to where it gets harder and harder and harder. And they didn't have that. So Outbreak just needed more to it, and the framework is there for something good, but they need to build upon that moving forward. Hopefully, anyways, we get something similar in the future. Anyways, guys, that is everything I have for this video. If you enjoyed this, if this was informative, if you agree or disagree, comment down below, leave a like, and subscribe. Deuces.